Hi, and welcome to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Tharaka Foundation focused on youth mental health. Before we begin today's episode, I just wanted to let you all know that all content that is found in our podcast is created for informational purposes only. This content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, treatment, or therapy. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition, and never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have heard in this podcast. Thank you so much, and without further ado, let's get started.
Hey y'all, today we are talking about a rather spoken and popular topic revolving around online and in-person school. As we all know, during the pandemic, online learning was implemented by schools nationwide. It took place very quickly and did not allow people to adapt and adjust, which led to problems for many students. Currently, most students have gone back to in-person learning, which again happened very quickly. We are here to provide an insightful emphasis on the ways that the pandemic affected everyone. This is because it affected the world in a manner that has never been seen before. Today, we are talking to a person who will be sharing his experiences and opinions, not just with in-person and online school, but her overall opinions on the life during the pandemic. Punam, please introduce yourself.
Thank you so much, Krish, for having me and asking me my opinion on the online learning and pandemic. So, I will definitely like to share my opinion. Before I do that, I will tell you I'm a mother of two. I do have a daughter who is turning 21, and she's part of a college, third year college. And I do have a son who is right now in the 11th grade. So I definitely agree with you what you said. It was unexpected. It impacted the whole community, the whole world, in fact. So it's really a pleasure to talk to you on this topic.
Alright, that was great, Punamanti. Thank you. Now, let's get on with the questions. So, you mentioned you had a daughter and a son. Were they doing school in person or online? And based on their experiences, what are your thoughts on each?
Yes, so we they were all going in person before the pandemic hit all of us, and then they had both had to switch online learning mode. So my daughter, we had to bring her back home and make sure she is safe and sound. And same thing with son. So both of them, they did online learning for almost 17 months. So which was like, unexpected, as you mentioned. And my thoughts. So I definitely feel like for my situation, I was okay. I'm working full time, but my kids, they are grown up. They did not need my help for homework or anything like that. But I do know my other colleagues and my friends, they were impacted big time. They had younger kids, and it was very challenging for them to focus on work and then sit with their kids to do their homework and their lunch. Like a lot of things happened. But my own personal experience, it did not impact me much because my kids are grown up and they are responsible. So even though they did get impacted in the sense they were missing their friends, they were missing that play time together, that social time they used to have with their friends in the school. But I still feel we were grateful, at least, they are able to continue their education and they are able to learn. So that's overall my opinion on this topic.
Yeah, I feel like it's not just about people have been impacted really differently in different ways, especially like with younger kids. I know my friends have siblings who have also been impacted by this because they're at a really young age right now, and having to face a pandemic is sort of an insane experience in a way, and it can really traumatize people for their childhood.
Not only that, in fact, I know, like, there are some families who are dependent on school systems, suppose for lunch, right? Like a lot of underprivileged kids or, kids who are in need, financial need to get supported through school district. How would they do when pandemic was there? And some people, they have just one small room and there are so many family members staying in one room. So how will they focus on study and then, get everything done in that one room? So you're absolutely right. It was like, different families, different situation, different age groups. So different people are impacted differently due to this, but the good news is it's over now. But I do feel there is again impact of that online learning in some good ways and some bad ways. But I will wait for you to ask further questions.
All right, thank you for that. So, was it an easy transition for them from in-person to online and from online back to in-person? Since you mentioned that they are doing in-person currently.
Right. So I do feel change is always hard on people, including me. And we all have that inertia. If things are like, you are a science student, when something is staying in rest, it wants to stay in rest. And when you want to put it in motion, there is a resistance. So I observed the same thing with my kids. They were definitely not happy with the change, but they had to change their mindset, the change management skills. And they would ask me, when will we go back to school? And my answer would be, I'm not a fortune teller. I don't know. So my philosophy for managing change is very simple. And that's what I have been telling them and teaching them. Always ask, is it under my control? If it is not under my control, what can I do about it? So the simple thing is just accept it and be happy with whatever you have. So my daughter definitely was not happy at all. She had a wonderful campus life. And now, like, when you're going to the college for the first time, you are learning so much. And now, after 6 months of that experience, she is back to home. She was missing her friends badly. She was missing the college life, and I felt bad for her, but I was helpless. So I had to, tell her what I just told you. Yes, the short answer is it was not easy from in person to online. And I will tell you again, from online to in person was not easy because they got comfortable doing online learning. They don't need to get up in the morning and do shower, or they can eat food whenever they have break, during that online time. And now if they are going in person, they need to be disciplined. They need to get up in the morning. So first few months were definitely not easy on both of them, but now they are getting used to it and they are appreciative of things happening around them.
Got it, got it. Any behavioral changes or any change in behaviors you noticed in them or in general from their peers or anything you heard from their peers' parents?
I definitely feel there were certainly challenges. As I said, behavior wise, yeah, they were missing their friends, but now because they got so comfortable, there was a, now hesitance. They were hesitant to go back, and they had that social kind of anxiety. Will I be able to connect again? Will my friends be the same friends? Or, who is going to be there in my class? Right? Will I get along? And for example, my daughter, she had to go to an apartment and there are room partners, right? So who will be my room partner? So I felt both were anxious. They were like little bit concerned. But again, I my advice to them was don't cook up things in your mind, just go with the flow, instead of fighting or having flight response, just face it, whatever it is, And I'm super glad both of them are doing fine now. I think my overall observation is yes, it was not easy on any one of us. And there were like, a lot of mental health challenges happened, not only among kids, but even adults for that matter. But again, how do we approach things which are beyond our control? So that was my biggest lesson from this pandemic. So either we can keep complaining or we can find that solution or the middle ground where we accept it and protect ourselves from whatever is happening around us. So that's what my thoughts are on this question.
This is something really important to note down and something which I'll implement in my life as well, because there is lots of things which we just cannot change, and how humanity is we just have to adapt because some things are just out of our control. So even I'm gonna learn to do the same thing as well. Thank you for that. So when you first heard that this online learning system was being implemented, what were your initial thoughts, and how have they changed over the course of those 17 months?
Okay, so when it happened, online learning, so I was definitely grateful for the technology piece because what if, online learning option was not there? What will my kids do? Right? And they are student, and for student, it's very important to learn and grow and experience the goodness. And now they can't go in person, but at least they have technology, they have that online learning experience. So I was very, very grateful for that. And as I mentioned, they are grown up. We did not have any challenges, but I do know it was a huge change for many, many parents. Like, and as we are saying, everybody's situation is different. Single parent, for example, they need to go and do a job, but now kid is at home, there is online learning. And imagine that kindergartner, how a kindergartner is going to learn online, right? And can they sit for that long? So yeah, I'm not going to boil the ocean here for everybody, but yeah, I will just stick to my experience. For me, there was not much impact for changing that model to online.
Yeah, I can definitely see where you're coming from. I know that specifically, not just like mentioning kindergartners, but like in general, schools skipped over like 5 units for like introductory courses, for example. And if you, for example, like went into an honors or an AP class the next year, which is known as advanced placement for those who are listening outside of the US, they're sort of like IB courses. Um, those were really hurtful to people because they do not know all of the prerequisite knowledge for that advanced placement course, and that it was one of the ways that COVID really affected our learning was that it didn't give us enough knowledge for the next year when we switched back to in person, and I can definitely see that.
Wow, Krish, you brought up a very interesting point because last week itself I had teacher parent conference for my son, and I did ask that question to all the teachers, not all the teachers, but one teacher specifically mentioned what you mentioned. So during the COVID time, right, that online learning time, teachers were compassionate. They did not want to put extra burden or stress on kids. So they kind of relaxed their expectations or their test standards or like skipping some of the material. But now, when it is in person, they are seeing that gap, that foundation is not that strong. So the teacher was telling me he had to do that gap assessment and like now he had to change his teaching style or make test little less harder because kids did not learn much last year due to online learning. So definitely, as you are sharing your experience, I am also seeing that in my son and listening from teachers. That means we need to double up our efforts for this year so that we like bridge the gap COVID has brought to our students' learning, which means extra work, but I know it's hard. But again, question is how do we make it easy for us, right? So there is no shortcut for success. So my advice to all the students who are listening to this is yes, let past be the past. Yeah, that was not under your control. You missed out a lot of learning, but you need to be grateful for what you learned because technology really helped you to stay connected with your school, your friends, your teachers, gave you an opportunity to still learn. But this year, be grateful again and put little more efforts to learn and bridge that gap which COVID brought to you.
Ah, okay. Got it. Thank you for the insightful emphasis on this. So, often in work and in corporate America in general, Um, there is often a change of surroundings from a hustling, bustling office to working at home. However, for a school or an educational institution, it can be really different. How do you think the change of surroundings affected your children's learning? And did your daughter or son ever share any experiences about this, which you would like to tell our audience?
Yes, as I'm saying, change is not easy on any one of us, but we need to change with the change. So my son was very, very unhappy when he started in-person learning, and he kept comparing with online learning. Online learning, he had async time and he had less periods, and then he could do whatever he wanted. He would finish his homework faster, right? But here he needs to walk to school, jump from period to period. There is no async time. There are all 6 periods, so a lot of complaints were there. My response was like, okay, I understand it's not easy on him, but how can I help? So I gave him option. I said, would you like to do online learning? And I'm grateful, our school district has given that option. If kids they have their special needs or for whatever reason they want to continue online learning, they can do that. But if they would like to come for in person, that option is also available. The only wish I had was like hybrid learning instead of all 5 days. If they can have 2 days of school, one day maybe assimilate all the learning knowledge, or if you need to put some extra work, do that, and then continue for another 2 days. Instead of 5 days week, if we can make 4 days week and give one day to assimilate all the knowledge. But I'm okay. I'm not the one person here. There people might have different needs, but yeah, the workplace, like I am, as I said, working full time. So our employers are giving us flexibility. We are going towards hybrid workplace, which means I have a flexibility to work from home for a couple of days or the days I need to, but students they don't. So we will see how it goes going forward. But yes, there were a lot of complaints, and as a parent, I was very concerned. I did not know how to comfort my son and make his experience enjoyable. So I tried my best, but I empowered him to make that decision. And I wanted to be in the support. I wanted to be supportive of his decision, but he made the decision to do in person. And I must admit, over the time that like, he stopped complaining and he started enjoying learning. And I knew, that change is hard, but once he comes into that rhythm, he will be fine. So he is fine now. But yeah, in the beginning, it was hard. And same thing for my daughter. And I really wanted my daughter to go back because I feel like this is the time she needs to learn life skills. She needs to learn, if there are conflicts with her room partners, how to resolve it. If she needs to build connection with her colleagues or, teachers, how to do that, because there is no replacement of in-person connections. So I'm glad, even though if she had online learning option, and even she's sitting in her apartment and doing online learning, but I'm super glad she is outside the home. She's becoming independent. She's learning life skills like groceries, cooking, laundry. So I'm grateful for that. But it was like wonderful to see how kids change their mindset from complaining to now enjoying board.
Ah, okay. Thank you for that. And finally, the last question, which we will be ending our interview with today, is if you were in their position, based on everything which you've seen so far, would you prefer the education model of online or in-person learning?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, there are pros and cons for both methods, right? So I do know international students, for example, they were stuck in their country, for example, due to COVID, but they could continue their education because of online learning. And there could be situations, people of special needs, right? So they need to do online learning. Absolutely fine. So yeah, if I were there in situation, as I mentioned, I will be grateful. I have an opportunity at least to learn, whether online or in person, doesn't matter. But at the same time, I would like to make social connection, have friends. So the short answer I would say is the hybrid would be ideal for me, but I am a person who gets adjusted very well. So I that flexibility, open mind, if we keep no matter what the situation outside is, I believe we will be fine. So that's what my approach would be to handle the situation.
Ah, okay. Got it. All right. So that is the end of our interview. Again, thank you, Poonam, for sharing your opinions and taking time out of your day for this interview. For our listeners out there, it is crucial to understand that you are not alone in this. This pandemic has been tough for all of us. Its side effects are still lingering in our societies, and lots of people are facing these difficulties. It is best to talk or confide in one another, as Poonam had previously said, as sharing your problems will always lessen your burdens. Trusted adults and friends are always good go-to people. Let us be stronger together. Poonam, any closing comments for our folks today?
Krish, you summarized it very well. So I echo what you said. Let's be there for each other and let's support each other. And I do know there are wonderful people, like if their kids are grown up, they are offering their hands to those moms who are busy working as well as managing their kids' education online. So let's be a stronger community together and let's not worry for the things which are beyond our control. Learn to protect yourself and go with the flow. Thank you so much for having me, Krish. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I'm very grateful to you for giving me this opportunity. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Poonam. So, folks, that is all for our podcast today. And this is Krish signing off.
You are listening to Mindful, Beautiful, and Thriving, a podcast series by Tharaka Foundation. As part of our youth series, we will be releasing new episodes every Friday, so make sure to continue to check those out. We hope you enjoyed this podcast, and thank you so much for listening.